Hello, everybody. This is presentation of the state of viticultural sector in the year 2019. We do that generally in April during our meetings. In this time of the year, we have this lockdown, so we tried to have a conference or press conference this morning, but it didn't work out because we had too many people. More than 3,000 coming into the platform, so the platform was not available or was not capable of such a demand. So we're trying to communicate to you again by this means. I think it's going to be by YouTube, and we are going to proceed with the presentation that unfortunately you couldn't see. The main topics are the vineyard surface, the wine production, wine consumption, international trade of wine. Then on a separate video, we're going to do the OIV focus on global sparkling wine market for the ones that, and then as a last slide on the Southern Hemisphere, wine production and the first estimates on 2020. A third video is going to be on also the COVID-19 consequences and our approach to the problems that we foresee. So, vineyard surface. Let's start here, which it includes all the area of surfaces under vines, even with very recently planted, in which we see that maybe they don't have production. We come to a more or less stable platform for the last few years, 3 or 4 years. The important participation of the European Union has to be explained. It's 3.2 million hectares. So we are in a situation of stabilization. And this is the distribution all around the planet. A few countries represent most than half, so they are China, well, Spain, China, France, Italy, and Turkey. And here we have a more detailed presentation of country by country. We have Spain that has reduced a little bit, China that has been with a big increase for the first part of this period, 2010, 2015, and then more or less stabilizing, although we have some problems with data from China, and we have to look to have better performance on the communication of this data. I'm sure that the future accession of China to the OIV can solve these problems. And then we have France, more or less in their stable situation, recuperating a little bit. Italy also with some small increases. On the contrary, we have Turkey that continues to lose part of the surface, and the rest of countries, which you will see. Wine production. Let's move to the wine production. In 2019, the world wine production, juices and must excluded, is estimated at 260 million hectoliters, with a reduction of 12% to the historically high production, almost a record in 2018. As you can see for the graph, there has been some volatility on the last years, and now we have more or less the average production that that you can calculate from previous years. This is the distribution of wine production in different countries. 60% of the total is within European Union, with 156 million hectoliters. So you see a very dark point in the European map. Those are the differences. Those are the main producing countries in 2019, and you see the differences from the previous year in the lower part of the slide. You see Italy, that it's the first producing country, and it's been like this for the last 5 years. And then followed by France, Spain, USA. And then with less than 20 million hectoliters, Argentina, Australia, Chile. On the lower part, we see the differences of the different countries from the previous year. So we have a 10% increase in Portugal, a small increase of, well, not so small, but in Russia, 7%. So the majority of countries, of course, with a reduction of the general harvest, in general, we have more countries on the negative or reduction side of the graph. And Brazil with a minus 34%. Wine consumption. In this slide, we can see the evolution of the world wine consumption over the period 2000-2019. And it's up to 244 million hectoliters. Small increase of 0.1%, so it's stable. It was stable till now. However, it should be noted that given the margin of error in tracking global wine consumption, these figures must be interpreted with certain caution. On this slide, we have the world wine consumption distribution in 2019, with the larger consuming countries mainly concentrated in Europe, the Americas, and Asia, notably China and Japan. As you can see from the pie chart on the right, in 2019, 2/3 of all wine have been consumed in only 8 countries. On the left-hand side, we have the top countries by total wine consumption in 2019. And on the right side, you have the same countries but organized or classified by per capita consumption. So the same data that it's on the left divided by the population. So here you can see an interesting shift of some countries. USA is leading the total consumption with 33 million hectoliters. But in the right side, you see, for example, USA also, 12.3 liters per capita per year. So this graph is interesting. Portugal, it's heading the per capita consumption, followed by France, Italy, Switzerland. We can move now to the section dedicated to the international trade of wine in 2019. And you will see in this slide that in 2019, the world wine export market, considered here as the sum of the export of all countries, has significantly expanded with respect to 2018, both in volume with a plus 1.7% and in value with almost a 1% increase. In this slide, we have the same figures, but considering each conditioning of the product or category of the product by, in some cases, by the presentation or the packaging. So, bottled wine is the green line, purple is the bulk, and sparkling with a steady tendency. And you see both the right side, you can see the relative positions of each of the categories. And of course, average price plays an important role. Here we have the top 10 wine exporters by volume and by value. In terms of volume, in 2019, Italy is the first exporter with 21.6 million hectoliters, followed by Spain with 21.3, and France with 14.2 million hectoliters. These three countries together account for 54% of the exports. In terms of volume, in 2019, France confirms to be the first, this is in terms of value, France confirms to be the first exporter with 9 billion euros, followed by Italy with 6.4 and Spain. So here also you see the explanation also is because of the previous breakdown of products. And we will see this in this slide. And you understand why the average price can be so different from one country to another one. Especially you see Italy, which has more or less equilibrated the offer between bulk, sparkling, and bottled. Spain, that has a large amount of bulk wine, therefore the average exports or the total exports in value lifted at the third position. So here you have New Zealand that appears, and in the previous graphs the previous slides I didn't mention, but coming in the value exports, and they don't appear in the exports in volume, so that means that the average price is quite high. Top 10 by volume and top 10 by value, Germany, the UK, and the USA, and that's where talking about imports. Germany, the UK, and the USA confirmed to be the largest importers by volume in 2019, and they account for 38% of the total world. And in terms of value, you have USA leading, and you see that the change from one year to the other. USA is even increasing from 2019 to compared to 2018. UK is small increase also. On the contrary, you have Germany that reduces their imports in terms of volume and more in value. And here we have the same countries, but with the breakdown of products, with the composition of products. Among the top 10 exporters, the USA followed by UK are the largest importers of bottled and sparkling wines, both in volume and in value. Germany, France, and UK are the larger importers of bulk wine, both in volume and in value. The next slide finally I conclude the presentation. No, I'm going still to present the forecast for the Southern Hemisphere after this one. But I will conclude this first part of my presentation with what we call the Market Internationalization Index. This index is constructed as the ratio between the exports and the consumption. So in general, we can say that this is an index that has evolved very steeply in this historical present series of 19 years, steeply between 2000 and 2008, or even 2010, and then, well, you can see it's flat, not really that flat, but with a less steep tendency. So we can say that out of 10 bottles, 4 cross a border. It's a very heavily internationalized product compared to other agricultural commodities. And finally, I want to present you the wine production in the Southern Hemisphere, the first estimates for 2020. And this year we expect a decline in production in all the South American countries, except Uruguay. South Africa seems to continue to recovery the path from the draw and expects a 5% with respect to last year, so coming back to what it was, the normal production of South Africa. And well, the causes of this may be attributed, in the case of Argentina and Chile, to problems in climate. Australia also, it has had a very important drought, but also the bushfires have affected the situation directly and indirectly. So the rest of countries are more or less stable with small increases or decreases. So that's all to this point. Thank you for your attention.